Solomon is dead, and all the people gather together and make Rehoboam king, all the people, all 12 tribes. But they say to him, "Your father laid a heavy load on us. Lighten that load and we will serve you." So he asks Solomon's old elders, "What advice do you give?" And they said, "Give the people a kind answer and they will serve you for life." But Rehoboam turns to his friends and asks their advice, and they say, "Tell the people, my father scourged you with whips, I will scourge you with scorpions." A very harsh answer. And he takes their advice. What's wrong with Rehoboam? Why does he ignore the advice of the elders, which is clearly better advice? I like Erickson's 8 stages of development, and I think they can throw light on this. The concept is that at every stage in life, we face a conflict, a crisis. Not just midlife crisis, at 8 stages. We face a crisis, and if we negotiate this crisis adequately, we win a prize that is with us for the rest of our lives. Now there is the detail of the first 7. I haven't got any time to talk about them, but I want to look a little bit at the 8th stage, old age, the one I've arrived at. It's triggered by the natural disintegration of our bodies. And the crisis at that time is, will I, as my body disintegrates, be able to hold in my mind that my life has been integrated, that it's been a life of integrity, that it's held together, that with all my faults and failings, it's been a life worth living. If I can do that, the prize is wisdom. Now that's not to say for a minute that young people can't have wisdom. Of course they can. It also isn't to say that all old people win wisdom. They don't. But if you want good advice, look for a wise old man or a wise old woman and take their advice. But Rehoboam doesn't. Why not? Well, I can take a few educated guesses from what we know about him. Firstly, somehow in his childhood, he never gained the prize of the ability to trust. We see it quite clearly. He didn't trust God for his future. He didn't trust the people. And he didn't trust the word of the elders. And I think somewhere in his early development, he never gained the prize of autonomy. Autonomy means that I feel adequate in myself to make my own decisions. And so he takes the easy option and asks for the decision of his friends. And their answer is one of harshness and cruelty. And that leads us to the question, why are people so attracted to harshness and cruelty? And many are. Adolf Hitler was elected to power by the popular vote of the people. And why was Rehoboam attracted to harshness and cruelty? Well, let's go back to the Enneagram. You remember his grandfather David was a 9 on the Enneagram, a peacemaker, which is a wonderful thing. But their weakness is they postpone difficult decisions, and he never got around to discipline his own children. And I presume from that he didn't discipline Solomon. And I presume Solomon didn't discipline Rehoboam. And then Solomon himself was a number 3, that is the achiever, very taken up with success, so that he doesn't pay attention to what's going on down below the waterline. And so we have this young man, Rehoboam, who's probably never been disciplined, who's never been set an example of examining what's going on inside him. And he behaves like a petulant teenager. Actually, he's 40 years old, but he doesn't behave it. And so he takes the advice of his friends. So why is Rehoboam so attracted to the cruel advice of his friends? I think the answer is that he himself is a number 8 on the Enneagram, the tough guy. These are people who love to show their strength, and often by cruelty and harshness. Actually, under the surface, they're often afraid that deep within they're quite weak, and they cover that up by being cruel to others. That's the definition of a bully. Now, all 9 of these personality types are wonderful people when their personality is redeemed. The gift of the number 8 is that he uses his strength to protect the weak. But that's not what Rehoboam does. He's attracted to the harsh answer, and he gives them a harsh answer. And this leads us to the pivotal verse in the whole Bible for the history of Israel. Now, that's a pretty dramatic statement, but I think it's true. From this moment on, nothing is the same again. And even key words in the Bible change their meaning at this point. The verse is 1 Kings 12, verse 20. Circle it in red. The verse says, "Then the people of Israel appointed Jeroboam as king. Only the tribe of Judah remained loyal to Rehoboam." Now those words, Israel and Judah, they change their meaning at this point in the Bible. Up to this point, the word Israel has always referred to all 12 tribes. Now it will refer to just the 10 northern tribes who are now an independent nation and will remain an independent nation until their demise 200 years later. The word Judah used to refer just to the tribe of Judah. Now it refers to a new nation that's been formed, actually of 2 tribes, Benjamin and Judah combined, with a bunch of Levites included. And that nation will endure to the present day. And we get the word Jew from the word Judah. And interestingly, in the last 80 years, the new state of Israel has changed the meaning of the word Israel yet again. And so they all break away from Rehoboam. Then we read what I think is theologically the center verse of this chapter, verse 15. All of this was from the Lord, to fulfill the word the Lord had spoken to Jeroboam. What I understand by that is that God is able to use godless people to fulfill his purposes. Jeroboam was certainly a godless person. There are many who believe that Dunkirk had God's hand in it, and one of the key things was God caused Hitler, we believe, to take a disastrous decision to halt the panzers, we believe, so that the arrogant Goering could finish it off with the Air Force, and the whole army was enabled to escape. 4 years later, on D-Day, Rommel always said, when the invasion comes, we must throw them off on the first day or we'll lose the war. But again, Hitler had been caused to make 2 disastrous decisions. One was he was not allowed to be woken. The other is he alone could release the panzers. And so those panzers were not released until 4 in the afternoon, when it was too late. God is able to use godless people to fulfill his purposes. Well, Rehoboam turns to his natural tendency to harshness and cruelty, and he raises an army of 180,000 people to go and force the 10 northern tribes to come back under allegiance to him. It would have been civil war. But then we come to the best verse in the passage. It's verse 23. But Shimei, the man of God, said, "Do not go up to fight against your brother Israelites." So they obeyed the word of the Lord and went home. Isn't that a lovely thing? They obeyed the word of the Lord. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Rehoboam finally did something good. But that phrase, a man of God, it suggests to me that Shimei was not in any official capacity. He was not a formal prophet. He was not a priest. He held no political role. But he was one of those rare people who, by the force of the integrity of their character alone, exerts great influence. We've had a few of them in our country, and they've changed the course of our nation. And we really need another one right now. And look what Shemaiah attained. He enabled the will of God to be carried out. He set a nation on a path of obedience to the Lord. They certainly didn't always keep to that path, but what a good start he gave them. And by averting a war, he saved the lives of countless thousands of young men. Not a bad set of achievements for someone who held no political office. Man of God. That's a phrase we don't hear very often these days. More's the pity. If I had any particular wish for this talk, it would be that it inspires 2 or 3 people of prayer to start praying that God would raise up men and women of God in the next generation to influence the nations towards goodness and towards God.